Let me give you a hint. A coup is never it.
Just what you've been waiting for. Movies, TV, music, and more. Follow, subscribe, stay up to date. Episodes drop every other Monday. It's the man, watch that. It's the man, watch that. It's the man, watch that podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to the Matt Watch That podcast, the place for reviews, rants, and randomness. I'm your host, Matt Seroski, filmmaker, film fan. Each episode, I'm going to watch a movie or TV pilot that I probably should have seen but never got around to. It could be a recent favorite, critic's choice, or cult classic. To join in on the conversation, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, at Matt Seroski. You can subscribe to my YouTube page where I'll post videos and clips from the show. If you have any opinions on what I've discussed, or suggestions as to what I should see next, use the hashtag MattWatchThat on social. Before we start, it seems that in this season of the podcast, I've been talking a lot about the changing entertainment landscape. I mean, I kind of have to, it affects me. But the pandemic impacted the industry tremendously, and it still hasn't recovered. I've spoken in depth, and some might think ad nauseum, about how studio executives shot themselves in the foot by shortening the window from theatrical to streaming, killing the home video market, and diminishing that revenue stream. And as these studio executives try to figure out how to turn things around, some have taken drastic measures by company-wide layoffs and shelving completed films in favor of tax write-offs, all in an effort to please their shareholders. And none has been so bold as the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, David Zaslav. I've always been cautious about being critical of people on this podcast because it's possible that I will work with them one day. But I'm stating this now. I will never work for David Zaslav. So the gloves are off. He doesn't care about the creative community, only the green that lines his pockets. An article on Deadline came out recently regarding his 2023 compensation package. It took a measly $10 million jump to $49.7 million total. That's a base salary of $3 million, and how can we expect him to live on that? It includes $23 million in stock awards and a cash bonus of $22 million. Now, I'll never begrudge anyone for making money, but when the company that you run has $40 billion in total debt, mostly because of your bad decisions, and your solution is layoffs and tax write-offs, you might not be worth the $50 million a year. On to the main attraction. Each review will end with a ranking out of 5 stars. 1 star is skip it, 2 stars watch at your own risk, 3 stars standard fare, 4 stars worth checking out, and 5 stars must-see. Now, if I give a title 5 stars, it doesn't mean I'm comparing it to Casablanca, Jaws, or Seinfeld. I rank titles based on other movies or TV series in that genre and at that time period. On this episode of the podcast, I'll be reviewing 7 Days in May from 1964. It was directed by John Frankenheimer, who helmed crime drama Birdman of Alcatraz, political thriller The Manchurian Candidate, drama adaptation The Iceman Cometh, and horror remake The Island of Dr. Moreau. He won 4 Primetime Emmy Awards for television specials and miniseries Against the Wall, The Burning Season, The Chico Mendez Story, Andersonville, and George Wallace. The screenplay was written by Rod Serling, the creator of anthology series The Twilight Zone and Night Gallery. He also co-wrote the screenplay for Planet of the Apes with Michael Wilson, and racked up 6 Primetime Emmy Awards in his career. 7 Days in May was based on a novel of the same name by Fletcher Knable and Charles W. Bailey II. It stars Burt Lancaster as U.S. Air Force General James Mattoon Scott. Born and raised in East Harlem, he formed an acrobat duo with childhood friend Nick Cravat, and performed as part of the K Brothers Circus. When an injury forced him to retire, he joined the United States Army and served under the Fifth Army in Italy. He returned to Manhattan and was cast in the Broadway play A Sound of Hunting. His feature film debut was in Ernest Hemingway's The Killers, alongside Ava Gardner. The movie's success skyrocketed him into stardom, leading to roles in Veracruz, From Here to Eternity, Gunfight at the OK Corral, Sweet Smell of Success, Judgment at Nuremberg, and Birdman of Alcatraz. He won an Oscar for Best Actor in a Leading Role for Elmer Gantry. Kirk Douglas portrays Marine Colonel Martin Casey. He was inspired to become a performer after reciting a poem in kindergarten and enjoying the applause from the crowd. He received a scholarship to attend the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City. He was classmates with Lauren Bacall and Diana Hill, who would become his first wife. After serving in the United States Navy, he came back to New York City and worked in radio, theater, and commercials. Lauren Bacall recommended him to producer Hal B. Wallace for a part in The Strange Love of Martha Ivers. He would go on to appear in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Gunfight at the OK Corral, Paths of Glory, Spartacus, and The Final Countdown. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. He's been nominated for 3 Academy Awards for Champion, The Bad and the Beautiful, and Lust for Life. In 1996, he received an honorary award for creative and moral force in the motion picture community. 7 Days in May also features Frederick March as U.S. President Jordan Lyman, Ava Gardner as Eleanor Holbrook, Edmund O'Brien as U.S. Senator Ray Clark, and Martin Balsam as White House Chief of Staff Paul Gerard. This is something to look out for. This was the Paper Chase star John Houseman's feature film debut, though the role was uncredited. So let's jump into it. In Washington, D.C., just outside the White House, people have gathered to march with signs, some supporting President Jordan Lyman and others who oppose, which quickly degenerates into a melee. In recent weeks, President Lyman's poll numbers have substantially dropped to historic lows due to a treaty signed with the Russians to disarm both countries of nuclear weapons. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General James Mattoon Scott, expresses concern to the Senate Armed Services Committee, believing the arsenal that the United States has built up to defend itself from the Russians is the reason they've remained safe, and to trust that the Soviet Union will honor a piece of paper is an act of naivete. Senator Fred Prentice agrees with the general, pointing to Pearl Harbor and the necessity to remain armed and at the ready, but other members don't support the idea of continuing to build bigger and better bombs to live under the threat of potential war. Marine Colonel Martin Casey comes across evidence to suggest that General Scott is planning on staging a coup to remove the president. Here's a quote without context. "I'll make you 2 promises. A very good steak, medium rare, and the truth, which is very rare." 7 Days in May is a cautionary tale about the fragility of democracy and the importance of standing up to people in positions of power who refuse to uphold the Constitution. Complete work of fiction, right? This is a pure political drama, a mature movie, a film for adults. It started with an interesting title sequence over the United States Constitution, which transitions into the presidential seal over a simple, yet powerful military drum and piano piece. The performances are excellent from top to bottom. Normally, antagonists can be portrayed as maniacal, but Lancaster plays the part of General Scott very subtly. His character is somewhat justified in his motives, and that always makes for a good antagonist. But what pushes him into the villain category is the method to reach the desired outcome. Let me give you a hint. A coup is never it. Congress people, please take note. Kirk Douglas is great. I'm not sure I've seen him in a role of this type. You can see on his face that he's conflicted between the loyalty he has toward his boss and the loyalty to the country. In modern movies, this would be spelled out in dialogue, but strong actors can do it with a look. Not surprisingly, the writing is first-rate. There is an air of The Twilight Zone hovering over the production. The editing is extremely effective, especially when trying to increase the tension. There were quick cuts and close-ups in one particular scene that actually gave me anxiety. When done in small doses, it works. The only downside was Ava Gardner, and it's not through a fault of her own. I like her as an actor, but she is underused, and the role is underdeveloped. There is a pivotal scene where she reveals vital information, but it seemed forced and convenient. I think the production could have done better in that area, especially with an iconic actor. Now for a little trivial trivia. When Burt Lancaster was cast, John Frankenheimer nearly withdrew from the project, as they clashed on the set of Birdman of Alcatraz. But Kirk Douglas gave assurances that everyone would be on their best behavior, and he ended up in arguments with Lancaster. They would end up making 7 films together. 7 Days in May was produced by Edward Lewis and was distributed by Paramount Pictures. It was filmed at the White House in Washington, D.C., exteriors only, San Bernardino National Forest, Hollywood Knickerbocker Hotel, Naval Air Station, North Island, and San Diego Bay, all in California. The cinematography was captured by Ellsworth Fredericks, whose filmography includes horror sci-fi Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Western Trooper Hook, and was Academy Award nominated for Best Cinematography in 1958 for Sayonara. It was edited by Ferris Webster, who worked on romantic comedy Father of the Bride, sci-fi classic Forbidden Planet, drama Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, Western High Plains Drifter, and was nominated for 3 Academy Awards for Blackboard Jungle, The Manchurian Candidate, and The Great Escape. The score was composed by Jerry Goldsmith, who wrote the music for war biography Patton, crime drama Chinatown, suspense horror Alien, sci-fi flick Star Trek The Motion Picture, sports drama Hoosiers, and won an Academy Award for Best Music Original Score for The Omen. You know, he's been appearing a lot on this podcast. I think we need to do a stinger for him. Alphonse, write that down for me. The runtime is 1 hour 58 minutes. It had a budget of $2.2 million and grossed something at the box office. I couldn't find any numbers. It was nominated for 2 Oscars at the 1965 Academy Awards for Best Actor in a Supporting Role for Edmund O'Brien, and Art Direction, Set Direction, Black and White for Carrie O'Dell and Edward G. Boyle. The film was remade as a television movie called The Enemy Within, featuring Sam Waterston, Jason Robards, and Forrest Whitaker. On the Ski Index, I give it 4 out of 5 stars. If you've seen 7 Days in May and have opinions on the movie, let me know what you think using the hashtag MattWatchThat. Moving right along, each episode, I'm going to post clips that I think people should watch. It could be movie trailers, music videos, interviews, or something completely random. Search for my YouTube page and there'll be a playlist called Matt Watch That Playback. Jim Henson passed away on May 16, 1990, and I wanted to share a couple of videos featuring the performer with Frank Oz. I've always enjoyed their relationship on screen, whether it's with Bert and Ernie, or Kermit and Miss Piggy, or together as the Swedish Chef. It was also apparent off-screen as well, whether they're talking in their normal voices together or improvising with their characters. Their chemistry and rapport is second to none. They are a classic double act. It's incredible to think that he's been gone for 34 years, yet the legacy that he's left behind continues to engage, educate, and entertain generations of children and families. Sesame Street was on the televisions in my house whenever it was on. My family still quotes characters from the series. I do find it unfortunate that Disney can't figure out what to do with the Muppets. They've never found the right platform to showcase their zany sense of humor. I thought they had something with the digital shorts they were doing, like Bohemian Rhapsody. They had a couple others that were funny enough. But fortunately, we do have the wonderful creations that Jim, Frank, and the rest of the Muppeteers left behind with all the Muppet movies, Fraggle Rock, and Emmett Otter. So I've selected a couple of clips. We have 2 interviews with Jim Henson on Arsenio Hall and The Tonight Show, one with Frank Oz from the CBC archive, then some Street Gang outtakes from Sesame Street, and last, an evening with Jim and Frank. Now, the audio on that last clip isn't that great, and unfortunately there aren't any subtitles, but I think you get enough to understand the relationship between Jim and Frank, and especially when they take out the puppets and start performing. They're all available in the Matt Watch That Playback playlist on YouTube. Check it out. Now it's time for the recommendation. Yes, that's the word recommendation with Matt in the middle. I'm going to end each podcast with my own recommendation of a movie or TV series. Today I'm talking about Sly. The Netflix doc tells the story of Sylvester Stallone, from his humble upbringing in New York City to the heights of Hollywood stardom. Along the way, he experienced struggles in his personal and professional lives, but his perpetual underdog spirit, perseverance, and determination made for a truly inspiring rags-to-riches story. It also features insights from on-screen wife Talia Shire, director Quentin Tarantino, Happy Days star Henry Winkler, who was influential to bringing Rocky to screens, and 80s action rival Arnold Schwarzenegger, as well as archive footage of co-stars Steve Austin, Sandra Bullock, Estelle Getty, Robert De Niro, Mr. T, and Al Pacino. It was directed by Tom Zimney, who won a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Multi-Camera Picture Editing for a miniseries, movie, or a special for Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, live in New York City, and Outstanding Directing for a variety special for Springsteen on Broadway. He was also an editor on The Wire, and executive producer on the docuseries Willie Nelson and Family. What I found most interesting about Stallone's story is that he bet on himself. He was on the brink of poverty and could have given up, but decided if he wasn't being cast in roles, he'll write one for himself. And he wouldn't allow Rocky to be made without him in the lead. That perseverance paid off. He became the third person to be nominated for both acting and writing in the same year, following Charlie Chaplin in The Great Dictator and Orson Welles in Citizen Kane. He also portrayed iconic characters Tango, Barney Ross, Lincoln Hawk, and Rambo. Stallone received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1984. He was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 2010. 6 years later, he received his first Golden Globe Award for Best Supporting Actor, Motion Picture for Creed. It's a really interesting doc, currently streaming on Netflix. Watch it and let me know what you think. That's all for this edition of Matt Watch That. Thanks for listening to me babble. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Matt Seroski. You can subscribe to my YouTube page where I'll post videos and clips from the show. If you have any opinions on what I've discussed or suggestions as to what movie or TV pilot I should see, use the hashtag MattWatchThat on social. Head over to mattseroski.com for all the latest news and updates, and come back next time for the reviews, rants, and randomness. Yet the legacy that he's left behind continues to engage, educate, and entertain degenerates. Yes. It was directed by Tom Zimney, who won a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Multi-Camera Picture Editing for a miniseries, movie, or a special for Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, live in New York City. Can you believe I did that in one take? I honestly had to stop and celebrate that.